Hello and welcome back to the Zouk line. I'm Adam. Recently, I sat down with Julie Meng. She's a friend, dancer, and organizer in the San Francisco Bay Area. And she's also one of the founders of Omni Movement, a dance school that teaches primarily Zouk in Oakland, but they also teach other dance styles. Recently, she announced her departure from the Zouk scene, so before she left, I wanted to sit down and get some insight into her experiences and maybe some insight into just why she's leaving altogether. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and we'll talk to you on the other side. So hello, Julie, and welcome to the Zouk line. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you find Zouk, and when did you start?
Yeah, so I started earnestly dancing Brazilian Zouk in like 2019 uh time frame, and it was my last semester of college. Um I kind of knew what Brazilian Zouk was before that because I was social dancing salsa bachata um before that, but didn't really know, didn't really want to dance it all that much
Mm-hmm.
until I saw Christina Montoya at what was then uh, known as Envy Lounge,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and as was then transformed into Legacy, which is now gone, unfortunately, and that was very
yeah.
sad news for me to hear. But yeah, I was at the Tuesday night in LA at Envy, and I would just peek into the outdoor area and see what was going on with the Zouk program. And so yeah, I like went in there and attempted a few times, and then there was an announcement about Zouk Babes season 3, and Christina was running a team in LA closer to where I was living. So Envy was in Orange County. And so it was kind of a drive for me. I couldn't commit to anything like more than weekly, um, to go down there. So when I heard about Zouk Babes having a team in like Hollywood area, which is closer to where I was living at that time, I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And like kind of unrelated to dance per se, but like I just wanted to have more female friends,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, you know what? It's my last semester of college. Like I've got a job lined up and everything. So let me just do this. Like let me give this a shot. And that's when I really started to learn Zouk, and went to LA Zouk Marathon for the first time, LA Zouk Festival in 2019 as well. Um,
How
so
long
yeah,
did you
that's
live in
how I
LA? I never knew you lived in LA. How long did you live here?
What? We became friends in LA,
Did
Adam.
we? For some reason, like my mind has you. Oh, it's so weird. In my mind, you're like permanently fixed to the Bay Area. I don't know why. Why is
Okay,
that?
yeah, I know, because there's a reason. There's a reason. It's
Okay.
because when I started learning Zouk, well, I was just learning. I was a beginner. And
Yeah.
even when I was like training with Zouk Babes, that was sort of like one milestone, the very first like introduction to Zouk. And then pandemic hit.
Uh huh.
I moved to the Bay Area very shortly after Zouk Babes had ended that season, so it was about 6 months.
Okay.
And then I moved to the Bay Area in like summer of 2019, started my new job, kind of was dancing, but not as much because I wasn't on a team anymore.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, yeah, in 2020, and like there was no dancing for about a
Right.
year. And then in December of 2020, I was living in San Diego with my ex, Drew, who is a very popular DJ in San Diego.
Yeah.
Um, he and I were living together, and I was just losing my mind, like living in that apartment, not doing anything, not having any friends. And
Yeah.
so Christina invited me to go to Maui for the first Maui Zouk bubble, with Walter, Allison, Christina, Joe, and a bunch of others.
Yeah.
And so me and my friend Lionel, who's from the Bay Area, I kind of like met him through the social dancing vine, if you will, but got to know him a lot better when I moved to the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we decided we would just go. We were just like, ah, man, fuck this. Like, we're just gonna take off and live our best lives in Hawaii. Remote work was like, I had never realized how nice remote work was until I was able to work in Hawaii. So anyway, yeah, the reason I think that you probably just think of me as permanently fixed to the Bay Area is just like, I didn't really start becoming serious about Zouk until after that point.
I see.
After I had gone to Maui and was like, oh man, I really love this. I really want to do this like all the time. That's when the addictive phase kind of started. So like everything before that was sort of just like, you know,
Yeah, you're like dabbling, looking, flirting with Zouk a little. Yeah, no, yeah, that's right. Because I do
yeah,
remember you living in San Diego. Now that you mentioned, it, I was like, oh, I do remember some of that. But
yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, always yeah, Bay Area's right.
Mhm.
Associate. That's so funny. Yeah, in the Maui bubble, because I did the bubble too. I did the second
Yeah.
bubble, and yeah,
Yes.
it's if
Right.
you're gonna work remotely, that's a great place to do it.
It is. It is. It made me realize, man, I could just travel anywhere and this could work. And so it was the start of then a year-long journey of not living anywhere and
Hmm.
just learning Zouk in as many cities in the States that I could. I couldn't go international during that time because it was a little dubious with all the COVID restrictions. But
Yeah.
yeah, I traveled to like 7 different cities and just learned from different instructors and got to know local communities because there were no events happening.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
Yeah. What a crazy time COVID was for dancing.
yeah,
Oh God.
yeah, definitely.
And then so when did you start? I mean, okay, so you were traveling to like 7 cities around, and like when did you go international? What was your first time going international for Zouk? Is it MX maybe?
Uh, Zouk MX, the first Zouk
Hmm.
MX back from the pandemic. So that was 2022, early 2022, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I yeah, that was also my first intermediate Jack and Jill. And that's where like so I petitioned up and won that comp. I don't know
Yeah, I
how
remember.
really,
Yeah.
but
Was with
I
was
did
it
that. So that was
Luan
cool.
or Joao? Who was your partner? Do you remember?
Joao, yeah, yeah,
Joao.
from Dallas. He's
Yep.
in Dallas, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. Like I that event was so epic for me. And again, right in that time period where I was so addicted to Zouk, really, really like in that phase of pure exploration, just learning about myself, a lot through the dance and traveling to all these incredible places and seeing them for the first time. Um, that was just a really special time. Yeah.
Can you share some of that? Like what are some of I mean, because we all can go on forever, but
Yeah.
what's some of the things of like that you learned about yourself, and just like what was it that got you like addicted?
Totally. I think like there's two main aspects I would pull out. One was the knowing I had more power than I thought as like an artist. I think that a lot of times people come into dance and they're just like, I'm not a dancer. Like but I want to try this. Like I just want to try this. I don't really think I'm gonna have much impact or that this is gonna have so much impact on me. Like I just want to do it as a hobby. And then like discovering that the more love I put in, the more I actually got out of it. And there was recognition in that obviously winning the comp and at ZoukMX was a big turning point for me because I realized like, oh, I actually can be really, really good at this. And like people had to talk me into it is the thing. Also, like Allison at that time had to really talk me into competing at all because I was so burned from all the novice competitions.
Oh,
I was like,
ugh,
this is not working. I'm not sure if
yeah,
I can do this. And so I had to be talked into it, but it turned out that if I just put myself out there, like there were things to be gained specifically around my confidence that like I could believe in myself to be a dancer and embody what I believe a dancer is, um, rather than just thinking I'm just a learner, learning from all those other dancers.
yeah,
And that ultimately would lead me also into Omni, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But like that was a big influence. So that's one category. And then the other was like exploring my body and like what pleasure can be and that I can own the pleasure. also.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times I think before that I felt like body's just a vessel, body's just things to like trying to accomplish things, right? Using this vessel. Um, and I think through dance, I learned that the experience is actual of living in your body is like a truly valuable thing that um yeah, it's hard to explain really, but like that valuable thing would then influence like how I do things rather than it
Right.
going the other way. Like I just use the body to do things, rather I use things as like the goal, but the goal outside of that is really to just live in my body and to experience good things through it. So yeah, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining
No,
that,
no. I mean,
but
I
like
think so.
these two
Yeah.
things are they're kind of related, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. Yeah, because I mean, for me, I was definitely there was a I mean, there's a lot of things, but what kind of resonates with me is like that of like intimacy as well,
Yeah.
of like being close with another person, but feeling safe at the same time, and then like exploring that that space,
Yes,
that like
yes, yeah. And
that
how, yeah,
headspace.
that the connection piece is really powerful. Connecting with the self first
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then using that to, create a better connection with someone else. I would take that lesson later on. I live that principle like today. I believe that principle being like a huge driving factor for the rest of my life. So that's not something that I take for granted. Like I didn't know truly what that meant until I came across Brazilian Zouk specifically.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So this finding this love, or like this art form to embrace and to learn, and you know I'm putting words in your mouth, but to fall in love with, we'll just say.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, we'll just say, well, get addicted to. You did say that.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so then, how did that carry into Omni? Well, first, what is Omni, and then how did it turn
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah, so the Omni movement is a dance school here in Oakland, California, and our mission is to make partner dance, not just Brazilian Zouk, but partner dance accessible to everyone in the Bay Area. And Brazilian Zouk is our main offering because the founders, myself, Olivia, and Iman, all dance Brazilian Zouk. And so that's
Mm.
where the shared love kind of started. And now we also have a West Coast swing program, primarily led by Iman, who is learning and competing and loving the dance um, for himself. And so wanted to create a branch for West Coast swing. We started working together in the middle of 2021 and we launched like our first offerings in November of 2021. So we've been around for about 2 years, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a little longer than that actually now, maybe almost closer to three.
Yeah, getting close to
Um,
3. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I think we started as just a ragtag team. It was a pair of us, me and Iman teaching, and now have since grown to a full instructor team of over 10 instructors who are not professional dancers. They are community members who care about their dance and are truly embodying what it means to be a social dancer and passing on that knowledge and owning the instructor role rather than thinking, oh, I need to be a professional dancer first and then I can instruct. So that's what Omni is. That's what I created. And then, so yeah, I mentioned sort of earlier on that like that confidence of feeling like I am worthy of being
Mm-hmm.
a dancer would later translate into I am worthy of being an instructor. So when Iman first approached me in the summer of 2021, like, hey, do you want to teach with me in the Bay Area? I'm thinking about starting classes up again. I was like, I haven't even like been dancing this dance for like two years, but I did go hard in the paint. That is like true.
Yeah,
Like I
as one
invested
does.
a lot of time, money, effort, and
Yeah.
like I had the results to prove it. Like I really understood the dance, I think, and knew a lot of various perspectives and how to deliver them. And so when I was first asked, I was like, man, I don't know if this is appropriate. Like this is right for me to do that. And like there is something to be said, like experience does take time, and I do believe in that. Um, but I talked to a few close advisors in my life, so um, some of the instructors that I learned from, and they all really encouraged me to go for it. So I just went for it. And so I started teaching under the Omni brand, which was at first myself and Iman, and it was sort of just us running the show, creating a progressive. Many schools across the states and around the world have done that.
Hmm.
But where it became special, I think, was this idea of, well, if I could do it, why can't other people? Right? Like, why do other people feel like they can't share knowledge and be an instructor just because they're not Brazilian or because they're not professional dancers and they don't make their sole income from social dance? Like, why? I don't see that. But unfortunately, I think that there is something to be said that there's a bit of a hierarchy in the dance world, not even Brazilian Zouk alone, just dance worlds,
Yeah.
period. Like that you must like be really like be paid for what you do and like be celebrated on social media and all this stuff like to be considered a real dancer. And I'm just sitting here thinking that's not true at all. Well, who do I really respect in the dance community? Who really drives this community forward is the people who are out there just working on their dance, period. So I started building the team pretty much as soon as I realized I couldn't teach all of the classes. Before I was like, you know what? No, I can't do this. This is too many classes for me to take on. Iman never
Yeah.
reached that point. I only reached that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so then I started building the team, and then it became that. It became the vision of, hey, anybody can do this. Anybody can be a dancer, one, which is the fundamental, but also you can be an instructor. You could be a professional dancer if you worked, long and hard on it. And it doesn't matter what you look like or how much you get paid to go to Zouk MX and whatever. Yeah. Like, so that's how I feel like it kind of translated into
And when did, because you mentioned Olivia earlier, like when did she come into the onto the team?
Yeah, yeah. Olivia came in probably like early 2022.
Okay.
And I just remember just talking to her about how important it was to build community. And I felt that she had the same idea as me,
Yeah.
which was let's build a community that doesn't have a lot to do, at least, like aside from necessary things, but doesn't have a lot to do. It's not centered around this hierarchy, this imagined hierarchy
Yeah.
that somebody came up with, or culturally we kind of live in at this moment. And I felt that she really cared about building a family within the Bay Area, which sorely needed it. As the people who know the history, it's very contentious in the Bay Area. And so, like, we really needed a fresh start, a new perspective here. And that's what I feel like all of us had, and Olivia included.
Yes. I'll put a link to the other interview I did with one of the other organizers that touches on
Mhm.
some of that contentiousness.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh man. I think there is something to be said, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, and maybe that's one reason why I've also gravitated towards being like at least vocally supportive of Omni. And whenever I'm in the Bay, I try to like go and visit you guys up there, just because there is something to be said about, like an accountant and a lawyer or a piano teacher or whatever, like
Yeah,
picking up this like new thing in their like 20s and 30s, and just you just learn this dance and you're connecting with other people, and it can be beautiful, and I think some of us that like did arts from a young age, like if you're around artists that all they know is a particular art, there's something that's lost from like world experience, I think. So it's a nice mixture of like having people that like can bring in like long-term skills and deep art skills along with life skills. You know what I mean? Sort of all mixed
totally,
together.
totally. Yeah, I think they're like when we talk about access, like the first thing about access has to be believing that you can do it. Like,
Yeah.
and that starts from oftentimes seeing that it is possible and the pathway has been made to not only support people who obviously have privilege in this
Hmm.
arena, but the
Right.
people who have two left feet and who
Yeah.
don't really, didn't grow up with this. They didn't hear rhythm constantly in ballet class or whatever, right? Like that's not what social dance is about, in my opinion, which makes it so special and unique because like everywhere else I see just privilege like rampant is like if you learned as a kid or if you learned as a adolescent, you just have a huge advantage and nobody else will want to dance with you or around you or like whatever. But social dance sits at this unique like apex of,
Yeah.
hey, you can be really, really good at this and you can be fine at it and still really be valued in this community. So like that's where I think the whole conversation on access like sits for Omni. And I think it's happening across many schools and many communities,
That makes sense.
especially in the US. Yeah.
So, which then brings us to, it seems like recently you've soured a little bit on Zouk. I won't put any words in your mouth, but it seems
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're like, maybe you're gonna change some things up. So yeah, so could you speak a
Yeah.
little bit to that
Yeah.
and the
Um,
cause?
so yeah, I mean, I'll like start by saying that I am taking a sabbatical starting in a few days on April 1st. It'll be an indefinite sabbatical. I'm not trying to put a timeline on it, meaning that I will step away from the director role at the Omni movement. And the director role is really the leadership role that like functions in the day to day. Um, we're all kind of corporate minded
Mm-hmm.
in this business, so we have titles that are very corporate.
Yeah.
I'm and that's not to say though that I don't invest in the business still. I'm still technically an owner, financially and um, kind of have decision-making power within Omni, but I will not be the one greeting you at the door
Mm-hmm.
anymore for the foreseeable future. And I think the it's not that I soured per se, but like I definitely feel like I have grown entangled in my social dance like exploration with business work. Like at some point along the way, I think because we had so much growth opportunity in the last 2 years, I stopped being as much an instructor or a dancer and more of a business owner. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I think that that has implications that can be really powerful. Like I love the capacity that I have served in. I don't regret a single thing. I think it was necessary for us to have the level of influence in the community and to, grow it in the way that it needed to. So I don't regret anything. I think most new business owners can kind of like relate to this feeling of like having to pour everything into something that cannot stand on its own, right? So I kind of referenced that in my departure video. But I don't regret anything in that respect. However, pouring into that cup means taking away from me. And what I ultimately ended up doing was marrying the energy and the passion for social dance with all of this work. And that led to burnout, like, is the short version of that. Like, I
Uh-huh.
think that I just am really I don't have energy to go and social dance anymore because, when I tell myself, oh, I really love this dance, I pour more of that energy into let me do more work or let me, design the next thing for Omni. Let me, make sure the next weekender is going to be prepared. Um, yeah, so that part definitely uh is the more negative side, but it
Yeah.
was sort of a natural progression out of what I ended up doing. I kind of knew what I was doing. I knew that I couldn't forever sustain this level of commitment to Omni and the what I was doing, the way I was doing it. But it needed to happen so that Omni could stand on its own eventually. And then there's the other side of it, which is more positive, and it's more about how like when Omni became work and when dance became work, I started to, explore elsewhere because I saw there like basically dance kind of moved and shifted into a new role in
Yeah.
my mind and in my heart. And then that left that space of exploration open for other things.
Yeah.
And what I found in that in last year mostly was that there are other things in my life that I care about. I think that I gained a lot from dance. What I needed to learn from dance, those two things that I mentioned earlier today, like they have ingrained themselves in me in a way that, is not going to go away anymore,
Hmm.
basically. So now I'm open to new lessons, new parts of my life, new parts of my journey that I have not yet discovered, or maybe I'm working on other things as well in my own personal life. And so I started to fill that cup, the exploration cup, with other things that I wanted to learn and experience. And then it turns out like I just want to also invest time in those things, just as I once did with dance, right? And I think that's, again, a natural phase that happens, part of growing up, frankly. So yeah, that's sort of the explanation that I've given people.
Yes. Yes. And very diplomatic as well. Like, all right, what happened? What happened? No, it's fine. It's fine. No,
You can ask questions. I'm telling you the truth.
I know. I know. I know you are. I know you are. I'm waiting for that beer to be about halfway down, and then I'll really come in with the.
All right, we're at the halfway point or so. Maybe I don't know how long this is going to go for, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
now maybe I'll start to get a little spicy. We'll see.
okay, all
Until
right,
you
all right.
ask me, though.
Yeah. I mean, all of this resonates with me because I'm in a similar position with the stuff that I'm doing down here, or organizer wise, where I have it's there. Yeah, the experience with the dance shifts, as you said, from like just being all play into responsibility slash play into
Right.
then even more responsibility, and then there's just so much work that goes in that's difficult to articulate to people that haven't experienced it. Like
Yeah.
the logistics of a weekender are surprisingly tall. There's a lot of
Yes.
logistics, just a lot of things to consider, and then um and then there's and I wonder if you have this experience where once you start teaching, then it's not that you are necessarily that different of a person, but then the way you're seen is different.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
can you speak to that, like some of your experiences and with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I definitely hear that. And for me, it's like, well, when you start teaching, but also like when you become an organizer as well,
Yeah, that
like
too.
the hierarchy again exists, right? And so
Yeah.
people start to know you, which is beautiful. It's amazing. Um, but then like there's something to be said about, grass is greener on the other side. When I was a dancer, I wished so much for that recognition, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I had it, I was like, oh man, I kind of miss being anonymous. Like I miss like, and I had the most amazing experience of that anonymity in in Europe,
Uh-huh.
which I mentioned, like I haven't been able to travel all that much, like internationally to dance Zouk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I went first to Prague Zouk Mass last year, not this most recent year, but last year.
Uh-huh.
And then went again to Frankfurt Zouk Congress on my way to my sister's wedding in October of last year. And it was incredible. I knew one person, one single person at that festival from prior to the event. And it was a completely new community. And there is just something to be said about that, like look of wonder in
Uh-huh.
someone's eyes when they discover you and discover like you without all the extra stuff like, social media or like, status and all that stuff. So that just was such a magical experience. And I think that that's where you realize, man, like people's expectations of you really can get to you.
Oh yeah.
I think that partially it's not anyone's fault, because it's a natural thing for someone like an instructor to have more visibility. I think the key becomes, can you, as the person receiving that expectation, know where to put it in your mind? And it's so hard, so hard. I don't know a ton of people that can do this particularly well. Um, Certainly not me. And so
Hmm.
like I haven't been able to really like put that expectation in the right place. Um, especially when I go to events that are not run by me in
Hmm.
the States, I just get very like I can't turn off that part of my brain all the time. But when I do, it's pretty damn awesome.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Being anonymous helps, I think is what I'm trying to say about that. It's like I put that expectation away completely because I'm anonymous. Like no one knows me, so what expectation is there? None. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
yeah.
I, I, I've sometimes I'll think about what it must be because on the leader side, it's a trick that's a tricky animal too, and
Yeah.
where it's like I think about Guy and Kuna and like all of these like names that all the dancers know, and they're known for like, oh, the amazing dances and all this, and then I just wonder what it must be like to be in their shoes, to be expected to have an amazing dance every time. You know what I mean? And then
Totally.
so it's a and then which really makes me appreciate like the dark corner late night at a congress. There's no cameras. It's just you and a dancer
Yes.
just dancing. Especially if like someone new you don't know, they don't know you.
Yeah.
Like it's just that's such a great feeling of just like we're just gonna play. We're gonna have some fun. We don't know each other, and then yeah,
Totally. Yeah, Guy was telling me because he's someone who's close to me as a mentor
yeah.
in
I
the
love Guy.
space, and he told me when I informed him about what I had decided to do, he was telling me that for the first 3 years of his life, like he was addicted to Zouk, like I was, and then for the next 3 years, he was like other things took over. Like he was working at a law firm, he had a lot of other matters to attend to at that time, and so he just kind of like, and then he also got simultaneously like frustrated with his dance. He was like, why can't
Mm-hmm.
I figure? He came across these blocks, right? And so
Yeah.
he would just stop for periods of time, and then also he would do this thing where he would just go to a social for 45 minutes and dance with one person. And
Mm-hmm.
when he said that, I suddenly realized I had judged him and several others a lot for doing that whole like marathon dance, but with one person and then leave
Yeah.
the social. But
Yeah.
now I understand why that happens. It's
Uh-huh.
because like you still have to honor what you need in the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. No one really cares if you're not an instructor and you do that, right? And
Yeah.
that happens probably more often than people give credit for. But the second you're an instructor or an organizer, people start paying attention. They're like, you're not community oriented and you're not doing this and that, right? And so I think like I had this epiphany when he said that. Not to say like it's now okay to just like marathon dance with whoever and like have no consideration whatsoever for the people around you. No, that's not what I'm saying. But like I
I'm
do
fine with it.
I
I'm like,
no, but like I am saying like I can now have more compassion for
oh, for
that
sure.
person who needs that. And I think we should name it as something completely valid,
Yeah.
particularly for instructors and organizers and professional dancers. Um, and maybe that's, I always felt there was a disconnect there. Like the people who, want the dances and pay, a lot of money, of course, to be at events, they have the right to, feel like a little bit like I want to have the best experience that I can. At the same time, there's the flip side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the instructors are also they need to fill their cup as well. And sometimes
Yeah.
this is the way. So, yeah.
What do you think about Jack and Jill's and how that's affected this dynamic? There you go. Big big swig.
Jack and Jill's has been a crazy growth journey for me, man. Like, and
Uh huh.
you're asking the right questions of me because I've really done a lot of thinking about like how that has worked for me. So I mentioned Zouk MX, I had my first like win, and then all of a sudden my ego blew up a lot. And like
Hmm.
I knew like on some level it was happening. I was trying not to let it happen, but it was like the first time I was recognized for something and I was so surprised and so like happy about it. I just I just let it go after a certain point and like then I had like a crushing like like bad prelim at Zouk just a few
Oh.
months later.
Uh-huh.
Um and and just yeah, everything came crashing down. And so after that point, I had to really come to a reckoning with like, okay, what matters in a Jack and Jill to me? Why do I do this? And like, what is the point of all of it? Um, and I've gone through ebbs and flows of it, but have come to the conclusion at this point that like it is truly like a moment to live in. And that's it. Like it does not say anything about the next competition. It doesn't say anything about what anyone else besides that judge thought in that moment, and that's it. And like now that I've seen enough of them as well and experienced them, it just has gotten to this point where uh I've realized they are not one, not as glamorous as everyone thinks they are,
Yeah.
depending on who you are. But
Hmm.
I also think that um, there are much more impactful things that I spent my time doing the last 2 years, definitely. And like um, I had to make a decision at a certain point. I had to make a decision on whether I was going to invest more time in travel and Jack and Jill's or more time on my local community. And I
Yeah.
decided on the latter. Not to say that, like, you know, um, I could have very well decided on the former, but and that
Yeah.
would have been a perfectly valid choice. Um, I just think that that's when I realized, oh, I don't it's really fun to be in a competition, but the impact that I want to have is not just on a Jack and Jill competition at the end of the day. So I decided to let it go. Um,
Hmm.
and so I suppose like what was your original question?
I,
Not really sure what the original question was.
well, I mean, just like if, its effect on you as a dancer as well as its effect on the broader community because on being in the
Yeah.
organizer sort of role you've gotten, I'm sure you've seen, especially because of the time period that we've been in this dance, you've seen
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah,
going.
totally. So I kind of addressed the impact on me. So then when I think about how I talk about Jack and Jills to my students, one is I absolutely encourage everybody to do it. Everybody. And it's because you're never learning more than when you're in a vulnerable position. And competition for pretty much everybody is a vulnerable position.
That's fair.
And I learned way more about my dance, about Brazilian Zouk and what's important in Brazilian Zouk, what's important in connection in Brazilian Zouk, all that stuff. A lot of that was driven by being in a competition. And yeah, like I think that I learned how I react to uncomfortable situations, and there are many that come up as a result of being in a Jack and Jill. And the aftermath as well is quite uncomfortable sometimes. So reckoning with that is also a learning journey on its own. So that's why I encourage people to do it. It's not because I want people necessarily like I don't think people's dance journeys should be always be joyful necessarily. Like
Yeah,
if
no,
we're
it's true.
thinking like dance journeys as a journey, really, like why should they be? Like it doesn't always have to be the happiest you've ever felt. And it can have probably more impact as a result if you really dive in to those moments that are hard. And I think Jack and Jill is exactly one of those things. And I think when people say, oh, like competition has no place in dance and blah, 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 like you're robbing people of a very valuable learning experience when you say that. So that's what I have to say about like why I think Jack and Jill is important for students, especially if you are interested in growth as a human, like you should do a competition. It doesn't have to be Jack and Jill, but just a competition. Like,
Yeah.
and you'll see who you really are as a human as a result.
Oh boy. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. You do learn about
It
yourself,
won't
don't
always
you?
be pretty. Very likely it will
Yeah.
be ugly.
Yeah. I go so back and forth with it because there are times when I'm like, oh, don't do it, don't do it. And there are other times where I'm like, yeah, it's great. Because I have the same experience, right? Where it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, like there's something about when you are really trying to do this dance properly and you're being
Yeah.
assessed, you know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, how much do I really know about this dance? That if you're only a social dancer, you can go years and not know that you're off time, for goodness sakes, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like all these
So
things.
true.
You know, but then at the other end, I see when I've experienced when like J&J addiction sort of sets in too, right? Or where
Yeah.
there's a lot like writing on it. So it just occurred to me like when you were describing it, it was like, oh, it reminds me of like pot. It's just like it's like you'll learn about yourself if you have pot, you know what I mean? But don't become
Yeah.
a pothead. You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah,
let it
you
be
gotta
be
walk
a
the
habit.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a line. But if you don't do it, then there's nothing wrong with not doing it either. But there's definitely there's some risk involved there. But yeah, there's yeah it it's funny you mentioned the aftermath too because I feel like I mean there was a conversation on Zouk Nerds on the Facebook group where they were like the public face of a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I do it. It's no big deal. You know, if I do it for fun, if I lose, who cares? And then I just felt so compelled to be like, I've seen a lot of tears from a lot of dancers. Like in order to do well,
Yeah.
you just have to care. You have to like really try. And if you really tried something and it doesn't work out, it's hard to not have that affect you emotionally. You know.
Totally.
And so
And I'm gonna say this, and this is now where we're getting spicy, I think.
get
Like,
it.
I think Zook attracts really insecure people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, I've observed it in many, like, different arenas, festivals, the way the ratio is talked about, the way, like, Zook specifically
Yeah.
attracts people who crave connection so much because they don't have it. They're parts of their life potentially. So
Yeah.
like I think that Jack and Jill's are can be a really dangerous place for people
Yeah.
who are not prepared to take on the emotions that come up. And I've been there. Like I was that person. I
Oh yeah.
was that person that cried after a novice Jack and Jill at Elevation festival, like which is like just a crapshoot of a Jack and Jill.
Oh God, is it? Yeah.
Like I was that person who took it seriously. And like I think that it's a very fine line when we advise people how to deal with it. I remember being at Zouk Heat and, I felt I danced really well and then didn't make it past prelims. I was so like just angry, sad, upset, all the effort I had put in and how much faith that I had had that was just crushed. And
Yeah.
like Allison had to, basically just sat with me for, a little bit during the social and let me spill it out,
Yeah.
and I've had several people do that for me. Um, and I think that unfortunately some people's reaction to the tears is like, this is hurting you too much. Like, don't do it. It's
Yeah.
like, well, no, you're missing the point. Like, I'm feeling this thing. And I have only
Hmm.
now realized this after thinking about it a lot, obviously. But like, I'm going through an experience that is extremely valuable to me. Because at the end of the day, does Jack and Jill really matter that much? No. I got one little trophy and some imaginary points to to show for it. But like what is valuable is when something hard happens and I don't get what I want,
Yeah.
I know what that feels like and I know how to deal with it later on. If not all the way, at least one step closer. So yeah, I think that yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I think people go too far on both directions. They're like, well, if you can't handle it, don't do it. And like, or everybody has to do it because Brazilian Zouk is timing, technique, and teamwork. Like, no, you don't have to be either one of those camps. Just
Yeah.
treat it what it is. It's a journey, right? It's a journey that exists if you're willing to take it. That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, it's all made up. I have to. There are definitely times I had to remind myself of this. It's like this is all made up. It's just it's all
Right.
fake. But yes, but it is, yeah. It's that's the mirror. You're looking in the mirror. Yeah,
Yeah.
of like
Yeah, and
learning about
it's
yourself.
not that it's the experience is real. The
Oh, of
experience
course.
of like doing this thing is very, very real. But
Yeah.
the like when you look at the outcomes of like what do you get if you win, like
Yeah.
it's not all that much until they start paying people for winning. Now that I know that that's becoming more and more of a thing,
Never gonna
then
happen.
I'm
Hot
like
take. Never
scared
gonna
if that when
happen.
that happens, it's gonna be like a shit show. But you know. Like whatever, it'll be okay. Even then, like a little bit of money, it's not gonna pay your way through
No, it's
life.
not.
Like
Yeah.
no. So, you know, it's such a privilege to lose, basically, because
It's
you get to experience the journey. It sucks. It's not pretty, but
yeah. It does. It
it's
does.
worth it, I
It's
think.
such a yeah. Ugh, yeah. Um. Okay. So you mentioned that you're moving on. Like you've been able to explore more things. So what are some
Yeah,
of the other things that you've? Oh. Well, should we? No, no, no. Let's pause that question. I have
sure.
one more question for you.
Okay.
So you're in a unique position as an organizer that you have, like, you can take an indefinite sabbatical and the community doesn't collapse onto itself, right?
Yeah.
But there are some organizers that might be feeling what you're feeling, but it's just them on an island, you know.
Hmm.
So for those organizers, how would you say, what do you think could help sustain them, as far as like, would it be like, would you say like taking a step back, like maybe just reducing to like something that feels more sustainable, like like what are your thoughts on
Sure.
like how to
Yeah.
save yourself from burnout?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot in this arena. I think the position that I was in again was a choice that I made. And like you have to be very conscious of that choice as you're going about it. If you're the only one running a community and like everything hinges on you, being aware of how much energy you have to give in that moment and how much you might need to extend to extend and grow the community in a way is very important. So awareness is the first thing. You have to know where you're at. And then an awareness of yourself and awareness of who's around you. And if you feel like if you ask yourself that tough question, which is, can I do this for more than a year or like 2 years or whatever? Like, and the answer is no, you need to start immediately building the infrastructure, like to start to back away. Like, I've spoken to several studio owners at this point, and also Iman, who's taking on the full, directorship at Omni. That's not an easy thing. We're still in a not like crazy incredible place for me to be leaving. And so there's a non-negligible amount of work that he's going to have to take on. And so what I had done was enlisted the help of more people. Like, and I honestly think that if I am to come back to Omni and to Zouk, right, I I still think that I would have had to do that anyway. Like the amount of work that I was doing was just not sustainable to move into this next era. And like I think that's true of every organizer. Like if you plan to build a community that lasts more than a year, like you're gonna need help to do that. And so I enlisted a few folks who I named in the departure videos. So Helen Chow, Tony Brown, Kim Ing, David Lee. We have two new like kind of instructors in training. Flora Ting is one of them who has been in the community for a while, as well as Iman's current performing partner, Tali. She's learning to be an instructor. Like you need to start building that stuff early on. And that's probably what I would have done earlier. If I could go back and do it all
Mhm.
again, maybe I would start pulling them in earlier to do more things. Um, so that I can focus on the things that do give me energy or start backing away, to being more of like an like high level kind of ownership and management. So that to me is like the biggest thing is like accepting that this is a community. It's not your show forever.
Right.
If you want to like make it last, having people around you who care a lot as well. And they don't have to care in the same way as well. I think a lot of people fall into this trap. It's like, well, they didn't sign up to be an organizer and they didn't sign up, like no one in my community signed up to do these things that I'm doing. They don't have to do the same things that you do. You can delegate. You can like um break down all of your responsibilities into bite-sized chunks. And I bet you if you take one bite-sized chunk and ask somebody to do it, like such as, I don't know, setting up snacks or something before a social, or coming and, setting up the lights and the sound ahead of time, like people will help you with that. Like, and it's not that big of a deal to ask them to do it. People want to help with those kinds of things. It's when you present it as this huge, daunting task, then of course they're going to be like, no, I'm not sure if I want to do this. But honestly, like when I started doing that, I realized, oh man, I probably should have been doing this earlier. Like I should have like realized how much pressure I was putting on myself to do all these little things by myself when I could have asked other people to do them with me. And that is a joyful experience in itself. So that's what I would recommend is like just, being okay with being helped is a big thing in the burnout.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't know, like I know you like own some things in LA. Are you working
Yeah.
alone at the moment or are you
No, no, no. There's a group of us. There's a group of us
Mhm.
that are all like working together. But yeah, yeah. My dance partner Stephanie,
Right.
and then we just have like a lot of community members that are very active and like really helping a lot.
Right. Right. So
Um,
if you take a sabbatical, right? Like you
mhm.
still got like a lot of people around. So you'd
Yeah,
probably be okay doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is that fear that because there is that how to describe it. I know there are a lot of people who want to help, but not that many that want to be the center of, you know what I mean, like the decider at the middle,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so like that's one of those like you'll just I feel like occasionally you'll see a special person that's like both has the bandwidth, the skill set, and the desire to take on that role, and you kind of
Yeah.
just hope that it works out.
Listen, I feel like if I come back to Omni, I definitely will still want to be a decider. That has
Yeah,
never been something that burns me out, really,
yeah.
in terms of like making decisions about where Omni goes and what things we invest time in and like the projects we end up taking on. Those things actually are very exciting. It's the little things that drain your energy, right? That are really not exciting, right? That
What's a
like
little thing like what's something that drives you nuts?
Oh, subbing for instructors who get sick. I feel really bad saying it because, of course, everyone gets sick. But when
Yeah,
it's like really short notice and I'm the only one apparently who can, show up on like short notice, like I hated that at the end. At the end, it
yeah,
was real annoying. So, yeah, like I probably won't be doing that again.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
it's that kind of thing. It's the reactive stuff, right? It's the
yeah.
stuff that's like, oh crap, I gotta take care of this. I didn't plan to do that. Oh, I gotta take care of that now. I didn't plan to do that. That stuff really burns you out quick. And so like the more you can, enlist the help of many people to, cover, a few things here and there, because they will happen, right? Like
Mhm.
reactive stuff is normal. But if you're the only one carrying the weight there, it's a heavy weight for sure.
So what did you discover? What did you what have you where do you
Yeah,
has your eye now?
totally. Yeah, I've been thinking about how to talk about this. I knew you'd ask me, so um yeah, so there's a few like the lighthearted stuff I'll say is like um just new hobbies, like hiking. I love now like going camping and discovering like places in California. I have a boyfriend as well who's from Ireland, and so he doesn't know anything about California, and so we're like discovering California's wonders, like again, basically. And I'm a local. I was not born here, but I was raised here in California. And so a lot of the time, like I feel like I missed a lot of the gems. And like also it's raining more in California, so we're finally green for once. Like that never happens.
That's
So
true, true.
yeah, just like spending time in nature, it was such a good balm for me, like to be out in just open air because I was spending so much time doing back end work on the screen. It pretty much doubled my screen time because of having two jobs. I work in tech as well. So just being able to get out for a weekend and not touch my phone or touch the computer was like amazing. And I want to do more of that. Climbing, which is huge in the Bay Area. I've got like the largest indoor rock climbing gym in my like 5 minutes away, basically by car.
What
And
gym is it? I started climbing recently too.
yeah,
What gym is it? Yeah, yeah,
it's
like
called
bouldering.
Pacific
Yeah.
Pipe. It's called
Oh,
Pacific
okay.
Pipe, and Yanran lives like 2 seconds away, so you should just
Oh,
go.
I've been there. I have been there. I went there with
Yeah,
Yenron actually. Yeah, I've been.
yeah. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
huge indoor rock climbing gym. So I've been, going, and I would love to learn to lead climb as well, specifically, which is scary. That's a huge growth area for me as well because I'm scared of heights and I'm
Oh
scared
yeah.
of falling.
Yeah.
So like when you lead climb, if you know anything about this, like you have to manage your rope at the same time.
Hmm.
And if you miss something, you will fall for a little bit before the rope will catch. And of course you won't get injured, but like
Wait, and so, oh,
that's
sorry.
scary.
So real quick for the people that don't know. So it's lead climbing. Okay, so you have two people that they are how do you describe it? They're connected with the rope
Yeah.
in a loose way. Then the first person that goes up, they're going up, and there's like little hook, like little clips.
Hooks,
They clip
clips.
the
Yeah.
rope into it as they go up. So if they're like 2/3 of the way up to the next clip, but then they slip, then they fall until it catches on the next lower clip where your person on the bottom, they counterbalance you to
Yes.
stop you from hitting
Yes.
the ground. So that's what's scary about it is you're climbing. You might fall a significant distance, and you're probably already pretty far off the ground when you fall. So there's a
Yes.
psychological challenge there, right? So
And
I just
it's
want to
like
get people that may not know. Uh-huh.
totally, totally. Yeah, that's freaking scary for me. But I do really want to try it and like figure out for myself because people do it and do it safely. So
Yeah.
like, I really want to try that. So yeah, like a bunch of stuff like that. Like I have a new home. I'm sitting in my new home from
Oh,
when I
congrats.
bought it in June of last year, and I didn't have time to finish putting everything away until January of this year because I was so freaking busy. So yeah, now I
Wow.
actually can enjoy my home. I took a bath for the first time in my home. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome and will continue to be awesome. So yeah, like small things, like just living my life like a human that cares about like joy and pleasure for the sake of it, which
Hmm.
dance once was for me. And unfortunately, it's gotten to this place where it's not at the moment. Um, and then sort of the heavier hitting stuff. Uh, and this is probably another spicy moment for me. Um, I think sometimes the social dance addiction and therefore the people in it, uh, it kind of encourages you not to grow up a bit.
Say,
Like,
oh, you got to say more about this. What do you
yeah,
mean?
like because like oh God, the festival culture is like you just stay up all night dancing and then you Zouk marathons, you all day, all night dancing. And at one point I really enjoyed it, but it was short-lived. And I think
Hmm.
that's healthy, to be honest, because like
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my whole life just in a dark corner dancing away
Yeah.
into oblivion until I die. I don't actually want that. And that was honestly probably one of the bigger questions I asked myself
Yeah.
when I was thinking about the sabbatical. I was like, when I asked myself this question about like, why is it that you don't feel so like much like you want to go to festivals or you want to do all these things. And like a lot of people who are my close friends, they know like I just stopped traveling after a while because I don't think that I actually want that for my future. I
Hmm.
think I have thought a lot now, like, I have a new relationship, which I'm investing a lot of effort and energy into. And hopefully my boyfriend doesn't kill me for saying this publicly, but like, I just, yeah, like I'm putting my eggs in that basket to some extent. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
I
Right.
care about the impact of that relationship for my future family, for, you know, just yeah, like uh marriage potentially. I
Yeah.
don't think that dance always, and there are exceptions, of course, but I think for the vast majority of people who are addicted to Zouk, they don't like have the balance in their life of
Mm.
like dance is one thing that you do for yourself as well as, having a family and, doing things that are just as valuable, maybe more valuable, should be more valuable maybe like to some people like in the context of life. And so that's, where also like I started to feel a little bit like maybe this phase is over for me. I always kind of felt, and I've met a lot of people as well who have told me on the sidelines away from, social media and everything that like, yeah, maybe I'll stop dancing, social dancing when I'm 30. Like I don't really feel like I necessarily have to keep going or like maybe I'll only do this for another 2 years. Like, and I think that there's something to be said about that. Like, I think like we need to get to a place if we really want to be like integrated into people's lives. Like I love what Divergence Festival is doing. I think it's Sabrina and Ian
Hmm.
in Austin.
Yep.
Like having a festival that has reasonable bedtime hours. Like that's nice. I
Sleep
think
is
like
really important. Yeah.
sleep is super important. And you were the one who told me to start getting my own hotel room at festivals, and that made such a huge difference. I don't have to be socializing the whole time at festivals like the culture kind of makes it seem. I
Yeah.
don't care to do that, and I don't want to. So, like, that's just not really healthy, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that yeah, I started to think about these things and I was like, I think I I had my time that I really needed in my early 20s, especially to like learn about myself in this specific way. And dance gave me the avenue to do that. And now the things that I want to learn are an experience are away from dance. They don't lend themselves to me from a dance perspective. And so I yeah, just want to spend more time um being able to think about those things. And while I continue to be a director of Omni, I don't have enough mind share to like
Mm.
dedicate to those things, to plan for my future. It just that on top of my day job, it's so much. So, um, yeah, that was
So,
a big
elephant
step.
in the room question then is how much of this decision do you think was influenced by you getting into a relationship?
I think, yeah, because my boyfriend he's not a dancer, and that's purposeful. We
Hmm.
talked about it at one point, and I was very happy to let this be a hobby that I have. Though his friend and one of our friends who we share uh is a baby zooker now through
Oh.
Omni. That's so fun.
Uh-huh.
Um I'd say it's I'd say actually like it's a weird thing because dance helped me mature
Uh-huh.
in my communication, in my um confidence when I approach dating, in my, in many aspects of my life that actually did lead me to this relationship in the first place. A lot of the skills that I gained and like worked on for myself and the sense of peace that I had with my identity and who I was came from the dance journey. And then simultaneously, I think then like, well, not simultaneously, right after that, I think like it became apparent to me that that was true. And the next phase, as a result, is something that I don't think is going to be solved in the dance world per se, or like grown out of the dance world for me. So I'd say like there's probably some correlation. I wouldn't say it's like a causation per se, like he doesn't dance, so I can't dance. No, he's really supportive actually of
Oh, of
me.
course.
Yeah, being continuing to dance. Um, so it was a natural progression, but probably true that like the relationship is having an influence on me, in a way that's pulling me away and causing a bit of it definitely shined a light on like the conflict that I was having because like I don't have enough time per se all the time to like we don't share this hobby. So like, when I spend time in dance, it's taking some time away from the time that I would be in my, spending with my boyfriend. And that did affect me, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because I just wonder. I can totally just hear, like I can imagine like a conversation of someone watching this. They'll be like, "Well, it's easy for you, Julie, because you have intimacy outside of dance." Whereas like I think there's a kind of a dark side of, I won't say it's dark. I don't know. We'll just say there's just a side of Zouk
Sure.
where there are people who that is their source of intimacy, like in
Yeah.
in its entirety.
Hmm.
Uh huh.
I'd say yes, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing, but
It's
I
not
do
sustainable.
think yeah, is it like I don't know if I think necessarily that it's sustainable for me.
Yeah.
And I also think that some people get into a phase of like, this is my safety net. I'm not comfortable going out in the world outside of Zouk because I've built up this whole like there's that whole thing about how like at least among followers, I think this is a very common sentiment that like
Hmm.
men or people who are typically leaders in the Zouk scene, they get so much attention in the Zouk scene that they wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I feel like in some ways like okay, can be empowering, but is it really empowering if it's caged you, right? Like if it makes you feel like you can't go anywhere outside of this thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that empowering the follower, which I created as well, like a lot of um the inspiration behind that project was my own journey there. And I think that like empowerment exists in many forms, but it should make you feel more like you can do more, right? Like more with yourself.
Hmm.
And so if you ask yourself that question, right? Am I only comfortable in intimacy in the Zouk community? I think
Hmm.
there warrants then the next question, which is why, right? Like, is that, and then the question that you asked, which was, is that truly what you want? Is that truly
Yeah.
sustainable? Um, I would say that probably more people than would like to admit it's probably true that they would say no, actually. Like, I want to be able to apply these skills in these moments outside of dance, right? And build intimacy beyond the dance floor, right? With someone who might not be involved in dance. And that would be valuable to them. And so then that's where it gets like, little for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. You have to ask yourself that question too. And I find that maybe not as many people are asking themselves those questions to begin with. They're so in the community. I mean, it can really engulf you, like we talked about the addiction,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
suddenly your world can become in a very short amount of time just all about dance, right? And if you don't step back every once in a while to ask yourself, well, what am I really trying to do with this? Like, dance is not just for dance's sake all the time. Like, maybe there's something more here. Um, that's when I think people can lead themselves down that like pathway, that line of thinking, which happened for me for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Was there anything else that you wanted to uh, speak to, just in general?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say yeah, to close up, I mean, I don't think that I don't love dance anymore. I don't think that that's what the burnout did. I think it shone a light into the places that wasn't working for me for dance. And what I'm hoping to do with this time away is really like just reset. I do really think that the love is still there. It's just, like I said, entangled a lot among a lot of things. And to take a step away, whether temporary or maybe not, like doesn't mean that I didn't love or do not love Brazilian Zouk.
Why does it feel like you're breaking up with me right now?
No, that's not how it feels.
I was like,
That's
that's
how
you
it
breaking up
feels.
with me.
I feel like for the last 2 weeks as I've been transitioning, I've been going through like a divorce, doing all this paperwork and like
Yeah.
trying to like get my affairs sorted out. Yeah, it's like that. It's like
Yeah.
that. And it did feel like a breakup a lot
Uh-huh.
of ways because I'm breaking up with this idea basically that like I would be in this forever. And it was not an insignificant period of my life, like five plus years of social dancing. Um, I mean, I'm 26. That's around like 20% of my life. That's pretty significant. And um, so yeah, I don't think the love is gone. I think that I'm moving to a new place. Don't know where that is or how
Mhm.
dance fits into that place per se, but I'm really excited to find out what that is. And so uh, I hope to be around. I hope to be around in whatever capacity that might be. Um, and I just have so much appreciation for all the like many people. I literally wrote a whole thing about my like history of Zouk and like who has influenced me at many points in my life. I came up with 137 people, and Facebook wouldn't let me tag more than 50. So I had to scrap the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was
Like, gotta
so
make cuts.
depressing. I worked really hard on it too. So that sucked. But like truly, so many people have like come into my life because of this, and I'm so grateful to them. Every single one. And you're one of them, actually. Like I'm like all the folks who have known me for a while, like have seen me through and witnessed this incredible part of my life, and it was the best part of my life for sure, so far. And so I have so much gratitude. I really do. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on and talking about your experience. I'm curious to hear others, that are going through what you're going through, or experiencing it, and
Yeah.
I feel like you going through this is giving them some permission to, because I kind of see this as creating space, like where
Yeah.
you're just creating some space in your life. If Zook eventually comes into that space again or passes through, that's fine. If it doesn't, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so thank you again for coming
No,
on.
thank you, Adam. I was so happy when you reached out to me for this. Like I felt really just happy because it's offering me a sense of closure to reflect on all this stuff as well. So thank you for your podcast,
Yeah.
and for your friendship over the years. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going anywhere, so you can always reach out. So
Yup,
yeah.
you ain't going nowhere. LA can still rely on you.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe a
We'll see.
sabbatical, maybe.
Yeah. We'll see. My emails aren't going down. I'll just say that much.
All right.
So cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you again. I'll talk to you another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for coming to the Zouk line, and I really appreciate your time. If you have a moment, it would mean a lot to me if you could please like and possibly subscribe to the channel. There's no way that I'm going to monetize this. It's a tiny community, but it gives me a signal that that there are people that are out there that are watching and enjoying this, and it gives me a bit more motivation to keep making more episodes. There are a lot of people to talk to, and there are a lot of topics to explore, so it would mean a lot to me if you could do that. Also, if you want to join the conversation, feel free to join the Zouk Line Discord or the Facebook group. And if you have any suggestions, please let me know. And by all means, comment. Let me know what you think. So thank you again, and we'll see you on another episode. Bye.